Welcome to the Explainer. So, you know that feeling when you stare at a massive vocabulary list and just feel a wave of absolute panic wash over you? Yeah, we've all been there. Today we're on a mission to completely conquer this notoriously daunting list of 11 matching words, and they all start with the tricky letter A. Now, why should we even care? Well, mastering these specific words isn't just a party trick for passing a standardized test, though hey, it absolutely helps with that. It's really about elevating your entire communication skill set. It makes you way more persuasive in meetings, and it helps you pinpoint and articulate complex ideas with total precision. So by the time we wrap this up, you won't just memorize the definitions, you'll actually understand the deep, kind of fascinating connections between them. Let's dive in.
To crack this list, we're going to use a super effective cognitive memory technique called chunking. Basically, we'll organize all this raw data into memorable themes. So our game plan today covers the matching challenge, bitter and harsh words, words of the mind, actions and extremes, and finally, achieving mental sharpness.
All right, starting us off with Section 1, the matching challenge.
Okay, here's the raw data straight from our source material. On the left side, we've got 11 A words, ranging from abstinent all the way down to acumen. On the right side, 11 definitions labeled A through K. I mean, it is literally a massive wall of text. And cognitive psychology tells us that presenting your brain with an unstructured wall like this, it instantly triggers cognitive overload. Your working memory simply cannot process 11 isolated, unlinked pairs all at once. It's totally overwhelming. But that is exactly where our chunking strategy comes in to save the day. We are absolutely not going to tackle this 1 through 11. Instead, we're going to hunt for structural patterns.
Moving right along to Section 2, bitter and harsh words.
Now, if we scan that original list, words 7, 9, and 10, acerbic, acrid, and acrimonious, they practically jump right off the page. Why? Well, they all share this stinging, highly unpleasant vibe. Actually, take a close look at the beginning of those words. Notice how they all start with the letters AC. Historically, the Latin prefix ac and the root acer or acu directly relate to sharpness, sourness, or a needle-like point. So before we even peek at the definitions, we already know these words have a really sharp edge. Cross-referencing that with our options on the right, we find exactly 3 definitions that fit this negative, biting sentiment. Option D, bitter, option F, harsh, and option K, sour. Wow. We just brilliantly turned a confusing 11-item puzzle into a super manageable 3-to-3 match.
Let's lock these in, starting with word number 7, acerbic. This one perfectly matches option K, meaning sour. To really anchor this in your memory, let's look at its roots. It comes directly from the Latin word acerbus, which literally translates to sour tasting. I want you to think about biting into a fresh, completely unpeeled lemon, right? That immediate, mouth-puckering, harsh sensation, that is the physical embodiment of acerbic. Now take that physically sour taste and apply it metaphorically to human behavior. Think of a notoriously harsh movie critic. If they write an acerbic review of a film, their biting, sarcastic words leave this metaphorically sour taste in everyone's mouth. It's a really sharp, stinging critique.
Next up is word 9, acrid, and this maps directly to option D, bitter. Now, while acerbic is mostly used metaphorically for a person's words or tone, acrid is distinctly and aggressively physical. Picture a highly specific scenario for a second. Imagine the exact pungent smell of a blown-out car tire skidding across asphalt, or maybe the thick, dark smoke billowing from a chemical fire. That intense, throat-burning, eye-watering sensation you'd feel. That is the absolute essence of an acrid scent. It is deeply, intensely bitter, literally to the point where it physically irritates your senses.
And completing our bitter trio is word 10, acrimonious, matching option F, harsh. You'll almost always hear this word used to describe a deteriorating relationship, a highly publicized corporate split, or just a terrible divorce. Think of a massive band breaking up, like, the incredibly messy splits of the Beatles or Fleetwood Mac. When communication completely breaks down, and once close partners are suddenly angry, deeply resentful, and saying unbelievably harsh, terrible things to each other in the press or in court, that situation has officially become acrimonious. It's the ultimate toxic environment. And just like that, you've mastered 3 of the toughest words on the list.
All right, on to Section 3, words of the mind.
This next part brilliantly illustrates a really common trap you'll find in high-level vocabulary lists. Look closely at word 2, abstract, and word 3, abstruse. Seriously, take a second and look at those spellings. They look incredibly similar, right? They both start with the exact same 5 letters, A, B, S, T, R. If you're rushing through a standardized test or just quickly skimming an article, your brain might easily scramble them. but they represent two entirely distinct concepts on our list, options H and A. So let's break down their core meaning so you literally never confuse these visual twins again.
Word number 2, abstract, aligns with option H, meaning theoretical. To really make this stick, let's check out the etymology. Abstract comes from a Latin root meaning drawn away. I absolutely love that definition. Something abstract exists as a pure thought or an idea. It has literally been drawn away from physical, tangible reality. You can't touch it. Think of abstract art. It's not a perfectly realistic painting of a bowl of fruit. Instead, it's a representation of a feeling or a broad theoretical concept drawn completely away from the literal world.
On the flip side, word number 3, abstruse, connects to option A, meaning hard to understand. And here is the crucial difference. While an abstract concept can actually be quite beautiful and simple, something that is abstruse is deliberately dense. It's painfully complicated and intentionally confusing. It hides the meaning instead of expressing it. If a professor gives a lecture filled with so much esoteric jargon that literally no one in the room can follow along, that lecture is abstruse. Or, hey, for a more everyday example, think about those 100-page terms of service agreements you blindly click accept on when downloading an app. The legal jargon in there, that is the textbook definition of abstruse.
Moving into Section 4, Actions and Extremes.
Before I just hand you the answers for this chunk, I want you to actively test yourself. Think back to the remaining words on our list. Which action word do you think matches option B, voluntarily avoiding? Take a mental guess right now. I'll give you a couple of seconds. Got it?
Well, if you guessed abstinent, you hit the nail on the head. Our very first word on the list, abstinent, perfectly matches option B. To be abstinent simply means to voluntarily avoid doing something. We usually hear it in the context of avoiding short-term pleasures, like abstaining from sugary foods or alcohol. But to truly grasp the scope of this word, you have to recognize that it applies to intentional self-restraint in literally any area of life. It's an exercise in sheer willpower. Whether you're abstaining from social media for a month to protect your mental health or voluntarily avoiding unnecessary spending to save up for a house, you are actively choosing the path of abstinence.
Let's look at another, much more aggressive behavioral action. Word number 6, accost, links to option J, meaning to approach someone. But context is absolutely everything here. You do not politely accost a friend to say hello at a coffee shop. No way. To accost someone means to approach them aggressively, boldly, and usually pretty inappropriately. To get a strong mental image, imagine an aggressive paparazzi photographer jumping out of the bushes late at night, cornering a famous celebrity, flashing cameras, shouting questions. That celebrity is being accosted. It's a completely unwanted, highly assertive interaction.
Now, let's beautifully flip that energy. Word number 8, acquiesce, pairs with option E, meaning to comply. To cement this one, let's tie it directly back to the story we just built. Imagine you're the one being relentlessly accosted by someone overly aggressive, maybe a super pushy salesperson who won't take no for an answer. Eventually, you might just acquiesce to their demands simply to make them go away. You accept their terms reluctantly, without putting up a massive fight. You silently give in and comply. So one person aggressively accosts, the other exhausted person ultimately acquiesces. Connecting the two makes both of them infinitely easier to remember.
We can also easily memorize two of our remaining words by contrasting them as absolute diametric opposites. Take a look at this. In the top row, we have word 4, abysmal, meaning wretched. That's option C. This is easy to remember if you just think of the word abyss, right? A dark, terrifying, bottomless pit. If your performance in a competition is abysmal, it is wretchedly bad. It's at the absolute bottom. But look at the bottom row. The complete opposite extreme is word 5, accolade, meaning award, which is option I. To never forget this one, think about this fascinating historical fact. Historically, the word accolade specifically referred to that highly ceremonial tap on the shoulder with a sword when someone was being knighted by a king or queen. Visualizing that grand royal knighthood ceremony makes the concept of an award or highest honor completely impossible to forget. The deepest, darkest pit of abysmal versus the highest, most honorable stage of an accolade.
And finally, Section 5, achieving mental sharpness. We have cleared almost the entire board, and we've finally reached our very last word. Word number 11, acumen, matches perfectly with our final remaining definition, option G, mental sharpness. And this is incredibly satisfying because it brings our entire journey today perfectly full circle. Think way back to the beginning of this explainer when we talked about those bitter and harsh words. Remember how the Latin root acl meant sharp, like a needle? You actually see that same root in the word acupuncture. Well, acumen literally translates to having a sharp mind.
It's the ability to make brilliant judgments and take quick, precise decisions, especially in a specific domain. Honestly, by learning how to categorize and decode this information rather than panicking over a massive wall of text, you have actively developed true educational acumen today.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought. How will you apply your new acumen today? You didn't just passively listen to a bunch of definitions, you learned a strategic system for decoding complex information. So I challenge you. Look at a long-form news article or a complex essay today. Can you spot an undeniably acerbic quote? Can you identify a completely abstruse paragraph that definitely should have been edited down? The world is absolutely full of these incredible words once you actually have the trained acumen to see them. Until next time, keep hunting for those patterns and stay sharp.